Hi guys, it's March 31st, Tuesday of this week. So this is the second week, or second day, sorry, of this week. Here is the schedule for today, which I expect you to have done. But this is just pretty much introing what our first unit is going to be. Like I told you before, we switched around the units in hopes that maybe for the second half of the year, you might be going back to school and be able to do the debates in class. So we're doing literary analysis first. It's one of my favorite things to do. So first let's go over what we're going to be doing, the rubric, if you will, of the final assessment. So for this area, or for this unit, you guys will be doing literary analysis of a short story. So while this might sound a little overwhelming, especially if you haven't done literary analysis before, don't worry, we're going to be going in great detail about what literary analysis is and how to analyze a piece of literature. So I will go over multiple examples where I will not only show you examples of literary analysis like I'm going to be doing today, but I also will be showing you how to break down a piece of writing and analyze it as you go. Alright? So, you and your classmates will engage with fictional novels, but not novels, because you guys will be reading a list of short stories, which I will provide you links to, and closely examine the characters of the novel or short story. Obviously, you're not going to be using small groups. At least not for right now. I might have you guys try to do video chats if we find that all of our technology is working well for everybody in the class, but if some people are having a little struggles with technology, I would probably take that as not doing that. Okay, so first you're going to select, eventually, we'll get there, a text. Again, I'm going to give you guys links to short stories, which you'll choose from. I'll also have a video which will give you an overview of these short stories and give you kind of like a summary of each, just so that you guys have an understanding going in to the short stories, what each short story is about and what might strike your interest, because trust me, you're going to be rereading this multiple times in order to analyze it fully for your essay, or final paper rather. So this is the final assessment. So you are going to be analyzing the text, so the short story, for literary elements, especially character, conflict, and theme. Those are three of the things that we will also discuss. We're going to be having vocabulary, and some of these things are going to be in our daily vocabulary, which you'll have quizzes on, but you'll also have me giving you examples in the text that we read in the next upcoming weeks, I think starting next week. To read independently, obviously you guys are going to be choosing your own text and reading independently. And then to conduct analysis-based discussions in small collaborative groups. Again, not quite what you're going to be doing, but we might have a forum set up to be able to discuss on Google Classroom what your texts are about, especially those of you who have chosen the similar text or the same text. You guys can discuss and talk about, hey, what are you guys thinking about this? How are you guys analyzing this? And then to write a literary analysis which cites evidence as supports. So you guys have probably already done this before, hopefully. Those of you who are in my last trimester with The Tempest, I showed you guys how to cite certain parts of The Tempest when comparing and contrasting to the movies that we watched. That's exactly what citing is going to be. You're citing evidence, so line numbers, page numbers. You're citing textual references to support your thesis. Alright, so that's a good portion of it. You also see that the rubric is attached here, and you guys should be able to have access to it. So that was the student directions and the rubric, like I showed you the link. So, 7 Steps to Literary Analysis. This is a good document just to go over how, when you're reading, what you should be looking for. Plus, it gives you a glossary of literary terms, which is great. We'll also be going over these probably in more detail later, but here is a good list of things you should be looking for when you are analyzing your piece of literature. Okay? So first, steps to doing your literary analysis. Ask questions. As you go, maybe after you read, maybe through your second read through, what struck you? What confused you? Did you notice any patterns? What were those patterns? Words, phrases, images, ideas. So did they repeat certain imagery? Did they talk about a red flower a lot? Did they talk about the mother's interest in making soup a lot? I'm sorry, that's a random thing, but sometimes that is important. If it's a repeated thing, the author is repeating it for a reason. Did you notice any contradictions or ironies? And then come up with an open-ended, higher-level question. This will give you a good idea of how to form your thesis. Is coming up with that open-ended, higher-level question. Open-ended meaning it's not a yes or no answer, and that you actually have to use literary references to support your opinion. That's what a thesis is, your opinion. It's not a yes or no answer. It's not a fact. It's something that you use textual reference to support your own opinion. All right? 2, collect evidence. So this is where you're going to be citing from your story. Elements of the story, plot, character, setting, narrator, etc. I suggest that not only you're annotating your document, so probably want to print these off if you can, because that's going to be the easiest way to annotate these stories, but also take notes maybe in a notebook. Especially if you can't print off your document, start taking notes. What are the characters' names? What do you find personality traits wise? What are their relationships between the characters? Elements of style. So the structure and organization, point of view, perspective, diction, syntax, tone, imagery, and figurative language. We'll go into what each of these means later on. And then construct a thesis. This goes back to the open-ended question. Your thesis must be, as I said before, arguable. It's not a yes or no. It's not a fact. It's something that you are arguing to continue your point, to support your point through textual references. Meaning other people can have a different point or the exact opposite opinion and still be able to support it using the same text you are using. Okay, your thesis must be provable through evidence. So obviously you can't say this character is secretly someone else in disguise, or for instance, if you're analyzing a movie, and which you aren't in this case, but if you're analyzing Little Mermaid and you're saying Ariel is Goofy in disguise, obviously there's nothing in the movie that supports that. It's not arguable. It's just not true. So something that you can prove through evidence. And then your thesis must be specific. Okay? Just like when you were writing your thesis statements for any previous paper, especially if you guys were in my previous class and you wrote a Tempest essay, even if you weren't in my class, I think you were supposed to write a Tempest essay with compare and contrast. That had to have a thesis. It had to be specific. It can't be broad. We'll talk about thesis statements later on and how to make them more specific. I know thesis statements can be quite difficult. 4, develop and organize your arguments. Look to the prompt to guide you on how to arrange your argument. So compare, contrast, persuasive, informative. So like I said before, compare and contrast, we did that with the Tempest. Persuasive and informative are other ways to form an argument. Write your introduction. Present your topic and articulate the particular issues to be discussed. Again, this is 5 through 7 is how to set up your paper. We're going to be going into way more detail with that later when you get closer to writing this final, so I'm not going to go and read these, but feel free to read them yourselves just so that you have an idea. I'm not also going to go through these for right now just because a lot of these are going to be your daily vocabulary, but honestly, it'll be a great resource for you to go back to just in case I use one of these terms in the future on a video and you're not quite sure what I mean, or you don't quite remember me doing that vocabulary, or maybe I don't have one of these words as the vocabulary when I use it and you're like, oh, what's a conflict? What's an anti-hero? What's an anti-heroine? What's an antagonist? If I use those terms before I put them in vocabulary, you might want to reference this sheet. These are great words to be using, especially in literary analysis papers. You'll be using at least one of these when writing your own paper. Let's exit out of that for right now. Alright, so we have about 4 minutes left in my little video, so I'm going to stop this recording and then I'm going to make a new recording for this Kobe Bryant literary analysis example because it's going to take longer to read. And I don't want to get cut off in the middle. So please, I will put a video right here. I'll put Kobe Bryant video and go to that one to get a reading and analysis and breakdown of this example. Okay?